Jessica.
Thank you, everyone. I'm here tonight to talk about research in virtual reality. Thank you, Liv, for setting the groundwork, talking about, on one slide you had testing, experimentation, and research, and it was my favorite slide that you presented. I'm a huge fan of all of those things. All right, so there's three things that I want to try to talk about tonight. One is a little bit about what's going on generally in research, in the research landscape, in virtual reality, and the things that I get really excited about in this field. Next, I'm going to talk about the results of a social VR study that I conducted with Beth, who's in the audience tonight. Beth, if you want to wave to everyone. It's my collaborator back there. And lastly, where the next couple projects that I'm going to be working on in VR, especially related to usability. So my virtual reality, my first experience with contemporary virtual reality was the lab. And I got really excited the first time that I tried it, and I saw all of these opportunities to apply all these behavioral insights that I learned in graduate school about embodied cognition, and I just really wanted to start learning what was happening out there. So I started just looking and surveying what's available, and I really found there's a lot of medical applications and education applications, and there were certain things that were really, really interesting that were going on. So for example, this is one of my favorite things. Has anyone played Sea Hero Quest? Did you know that they can diagnose dementia using this VR game? So apparently, if you have dementia, one of the symptoms of it is reduced navigation abilities, and basically this is a navigation game. And so they've tested many hundreds or thousands of people, and so they have a baseline of how well you should be able to navigate, and then if you're not up to par, then they can do additional tests for dementia. So this is really exciting, and it's a great application of neurological research in virtual reality. But it wasn't quite exactly the types of things that I'm interested in as a social scientist. So I just started talking to more people about my ideas, and I met everyone from High Fidelity, and then Beth and I gave a talk in High Fidelity, and so if you want to know what I look like as an avatar, this is me right here in the jumpsuit, and then this is Beth in the black jacket. And so the entire talk is online, where we talk about the social science of high fidelity. And it's on YouTube. And so I would recommend it to everyone if you're really interested in that. But again, it wasn't entirely, it was a one aspect for research in VR. But I had this idea about how to do an implicit bias training in virtual reality. And so I applied to Oculus Launchpad earlier this year. And with my co-founder, Clorama Dorvilius, we actually created an implicit bias training lab. And we are hoping to, we're still waiting to hear the results of the scholarship from Oculus, but regardless, we really hope to get it into the Oculus store in the next year. So again, this was a really great opportunity to use the VR technology to reach. In particular, we're looking at public school teachers here. But you can see, I'm kind of looking at these different areas of research in virtual reality, and I really didn't feel like user experience testing was getting the respect that it deserved, and so I decided that I was going to do something about that. And so I ran a study where where Beth and I recruited 13 women, and we put them in different virtual reality platforms, and I'm going to talk now about the results. So let me tell you about one participant to start with, excuse me. So Helen, we're calling her Helen, it's not her real name. She's 23 years old. She's a professional software developer. She's an extrovert. She regularly plays mobile games, board games, video games, and she uses social media daily. And so we really, really thought, like, all right, we're setting up this experiment, so we're definitely going to find people who are psyched about social VR. And it turned out that Helen wasn't such a big fan. These are some quotes that, so after Helen was in a social VR platform for 30 minutes, these were some of the things that she said. People can interact with you semi-violently. When people got close to me, I felt the same as if someone was close to me in real life. I don't think I would do this just for fun. She also told me that she wanted to do social VR, again, only if I was sitting in the room with her, which is kind of a weird thing because in social VR, like she wants someone like in the room with her. Like that was something that really surprised me. So it was this really big dissonance that we found between what we thought, on paper, Helen would be a perfect candidate. She's a professional software developer. She's Gen Y or Gen Z, and she loves new technology. But we were very, very surprised at this. And so I'll tell you a little bit more about how we ran the study and then more of the results. So in the study, we tested Facebook Spaces, and which is a private social VR platform. You can only interact with people who you're Facebook friends with. So they leverage the entire Facebook infrastructure. And so it's very, very specialized because it's also very, very private. Like you can only interact with your other Facebook friends who own these devices. And then you can do things like watch 360 videos. There's not a tremendous amount of things that you can do in Facebook Spaces though. The second platform that we tested was Rec Room. If you haven't played Rec Room, it kind of simulates a YMCA setting. You can do paintball, dodgeball, charades. It's filled with a ton of like 12-year-olds who are screaming in your ears all the time. So it's not just me saying that, by the way. And then lastly is AltSpace. That was the third platform that we tested. This is kind of a free-form chat room. You can be public, it can be private. They have a lot of different types of activities. They have a disc golf, they have a drawing space like Tilt Brush. And then they also have a meditation room that was very, very popular with people. So our protocol was we brought people in, we gave them 30-minute demos of one of these platforms. And we were very, very specific about who we invited to be part of this. So we invited primarily females, so 13 females total, a range of professions. So, I talked about Helen as being a software developer, other people who worked in technology, people who were students, but they all basically had to be under 35 years old and very comfortable with new technology. The median age was 30. And then they couldn't be social VR experts because Beth and I, by this point, had spent like 50 or 60 hours inside of social VR, and so we really wanted to get a fresh perspective. We weren't interested in talking to people who were longtime users. We really wanted to be reminded of what it's like to be a first-time user. And after all of that, only a very small fraction of people really wanted to buy the hardware for themselves. And so I think what we did is we actually identified what's genuinely like, the hardware adoption is going to be one of the biggest challenges that's going on in virtual reality right now. And so if the content that's out there is not appealing, which based on these results, that's what these results suggest, it's going to be a problem if these experiences are not appealing to half of the population. So I'll go into detail on each of these key findings a little bit more. So the main top line summary is the social dynamics were hard. navigating the space was hard, and expressing themselves was hard. So while there were some instances of harassment, yes, so that happened, but that didn't happen to everyone. But what did happen to everyone is there was just something about the social dynamics that they didn't like. And even in something like Facebook Spaces, which is entirely private, and you're only hanging out with people you know, and so you know that it's not creepy, they were just like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, I want to hang out with people in different ways. And so I think that was another thing that was really surprising. So whereas Facebook has, with at least one of these platforms, you know, there's just no chance of like the creepiness or the harassment or anything, and the content still wasn't pulling people in. I guess you could say the same thing about Allspace. You can make Allspace entirely private. So again, there's no risk of talking with strangers. So I'll read you a little bit more of the quotes that we got from people on these social dynamics. And if you would like to read the full 46-page report, it is available online right now. I'll give you the link at the end so you can download it. But Joshua said that I didn't have enough time to go through all of the details, so I'm just giving everyone the highlights tonight. All right, so what were the other things about social dynamics that were a challenge? There was a ton of flirting that went on with the female avatars that, you know, our participants were embodying, much to the point where like the women, our female participants would just be like, oh yeah, like my boyfriend has a Samsung phone, which basically is what women do in real life, just to signal like I'm not interested. Like, so in a lot of ways, there were like the women participants were replicating the same behaviors in the online world that they replicate in real life. Let's see. There were a couple other things where women just saw really inappropriate drawings in like this open field area. I didn't bring any of the drawings with me tonight, but it's in the 46-page report, so you know it's all there. And then it was just really hard to know, like, why are these people here? What are they doing? And so there was just this really like uneasiness with knowing what people's goals were and what the intent was. Okay. And then moving on to part 2, navigating the virtual space was difficult. So this is one quote from someone: I couldn't figure out my own limbs and how to touch things or pick things up. I couldn't do the things that I was trying to command myself to do. So obviously that's a really frustrating experience for anyone to go through. And so you could think of this as, you know, it's hard to tease apart, like this is a new user and she didn't have a lot of gaming experience, so she didn't have a lot of experience using controllers. We tested people either in the HTC Vive or in the Oculus Rift, and it just really wasn't intuitive. So was it the controllers, or was it the fact that, you know, maybe like the application was particularly buggy that day? It's really hard to know exactly what was going on, but the key finding is that there just weren't enough cues there that were helping people figure out what was going on and what the affordances of the space were. And so it was again another barrier to the experience. Rec Room was particularly challenging for people because for any big Rec Room users out there, how do you open the menu in Rec Room? Okay, wait, don't say it. Just raise your hand if you know. Okay, 3 people know. And like people already, you all already did the gesture. So the way that you open the menu in Rec Room, you have to look at your left wrist, so you're checking the time. And there's like a mini tutorial at the front where they teach you that once, and then if you don't remember it, like good luck, like you're on your own. And so for these people where it was their first time using Rec Room, it was a tremendous challenge. And again, like they gave me feedback, like, oh, I'm so glad you're here. Like I couldn't imagine doing social VR like by myself, because that's really how they felt. Here's another quote from the people talking about navigating the virtual space. In the same way that some people sit in the corner of a restaurant so that they can see the door, so that they can control the situation, I don't choose often to get into situations where I can't control the outcomes. If it were going to be something I could use something I would use on a regular basis, I would definitely need to understand the mechanics better. And so there was just this big dissonance between what people's expectations were and what the applications were serving them on that particular day. All right. Lastly, people couldn't really express themselves. So you were very much confined to someone else's imagination. I felt like that was, as soon as that person said that, I was like, that's going in the presentation. So there's this whole idea that like self-expression, that you can like go into this online world and you can be whoever you want and you get to choose. And there was just this big disconnect between what people thought virtual reality was going to be and what was delivered to them. And so when they heard the word virtual reality, like they really thought they would be embodied in a more realistic sense. And the avatar presentation, and particularly I don't know what it was about the Facebook avatars, they were just incredibly unpopular. I have a sense it was because people had the expectation that Facebook should know exactly what they look like. I think that's why Facebook got judged so harshly. But this is, again, like a pretty counterintuitive result, I think, because I know people who would spend hours customizing an avatar and like so precisely like making an avatar that perfectly represents them and their ideas and like the way that they want to be seen. And yet what we observed in these new VR users is they were just like, they just really wanted like whatever was default, like, oh, I want to be a robot so nobody knows I'm female. They just blew past all of the avatar customization options because it wasn't appealing and they just didn't see it as a way of self-expression. So these are the four main takeaways for the study. So really like big emphasis on safety. I would always recommend that privacy should be the default of any social VR platform. Next, develop social norms so that way people know like, oh, I go to this room and this is the card playing room, or I go to this room and this is like the tilt brush room, and make it really, really clear, like create these cultural and environmental cues to tell people, all right, this is what this room is, this is what it's for, and this is how you're supposed to act. Next, make it really appealing. So we have a lot of people say like, you know, I really wish that I could just go to a museum, or I really wish that I could, you know, just travel to Paris and like get a sense of that right now. And so it seemed like there's this huge desire for cultural experiences that at least these three platforms that we tested didn't have. There was just this, again, like this disconnect between what people were saying that they were really excited about and what was being delivered to them. And lastly, test and ask questions. All right, so lastly, in terms of future projects, I'm going to be running a VR workshop for people who have specific UX issues. And it's going to be very small. It's going to be 10 to 12 people. You have to be a VR developer or designer on an active project. And if anyone would like to be included on that, join my email list, and I'll let you know when the application is open. So there were just so many usability issues that came out of the existing study that my next area of emphasis is going to be trying to work out, you know, these UX issues in a way that will eventually lead to a pattern library. All right, thank you everyone for your time, and you can download the board right now.